Thanks for listening to the Drummers Weekly Groovecast. You can contact the show at twitter.com/DW Groovecast and through Facebook at facebook.com/Drummers Weekly Groovecast.
Good evening.
I am warning you right now, if you touch my drums, I will stab you in the neck with a knife.
Ain't a monkey. Ain't a monkey. Mom!
Take it easy. Lower it.
I'm not gonna lower it. I have to do this now.
I don't mind you playing it, but lower it.
Everything is straightened out?
No, we had a problem. I mean, we tried to do everything we could.
What do you mean?
Well, you know what I mean.
Next!
Little trouble there. You're rushing.
Yeah, well, you know, that's just like your opinion, man.
Yeah!
It is interview time in Groovecast Nation. Hello there, denizens of drumming. Phil here from Drummers Weekly Groovecast, and we got a great show for you today. I mean, we have a good one. It's been several weeks into planning, and it has come to fruition. And we've got an interview for you with a young man who has never been interviewed before. And so we're breaking new ground here. We have a real life, honest to gosh exclusive. Our drummer that we're going to be talking to today is the wonderful Lee Falco, who is currently on tour with Donald Fagen and the Night Flyers. Yeah, he's just got some little throw together gig that he is out on the road with. So we're honored to have him on the show today, and I think you're really going to like some of the things he has to say, and he's going to break right through some preconceived notions about Mr. Fagen. There's some really good stuff, some cool stuff on the show today. But I want to tell you how this thing came together. I noticed several months ago that Mr. Fagen was going to go out on tour this summer, not with the Steely Dan folks. He's doing a few select dates with those guys from here and there, but he put together a brand new group of young guys based out of Hudson Valley, New York area, up around Woodstock. And I found the guy's name that was playing drums, named Lee Falco, and I thought, you know what? It'd be great to get this guy on the show. And sure enough, I looked at the tour dates, and they were coming through Atlanta. So I reached out to this guy, and instantly he got right back to me, and he was like, love to do it, man. He had heard our interview with Joel Rosenblatt and was all about it. He was completely on board. So Lee and I stayed in touch over the past month or so, and we figured that when they came through town that he would have a little bit of time, and sure enough, he did. He actually had a full day off in Atlanta, and so we didn't realize it was going to work out this way, but we really made a day out of it. Basically, John and I went and picked the guy up from his hotel, and we went out and got coffee. Then we ran around and got some lunch at a local barbecue restaurant, spent some time there, then hung out for a while, then did the show. So we pretty much blew this guy's entire day. But it was great. It really was. It was a good time for sure. So we're not going to belabor the point anymore. I don't want to tell you any more about it. I want Lee to tell you in his own words. And so the joiner music that we're going to play going into the interview, there's a track that Lee played on from the artist Rachel Yamagata entitled Nobody. So sit back and enjoy our chat with Lee Falco.
The angels near, they don't come here, but I know they miss me just the same. Stay until the dawn, you're the chosen one. Can whisper in my ear.
Hey John.
What's up?
I'm jealous.
Why?
I'm jealous, man.
I'm listening.
You know, we've had a lot of really cool guests on the show.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, they've had some great gigs. But this is one guy that we've got in here today that I want his gig.
I can't even look him in the eye, man. It's just, I'm so like this
anytime anybody ever asks me, if they go, man, if you got a dream gig, if there's like, what are like a couple of your dream gigs? And you know the two that always
for
come,
me?
Well, no, for me.
I'm listening.
I always say Steely Dan or Sting.
Mm-hmm.
And half of Steely Dan is who this guy's got hold of right now. And they're doing the tunes anyway, man. I mean, I've seen the set list. And I am green with envy.
Well, that's good for you.
Well, you know.
It's a character builder, as my grandmother would say.
Well, just because...
Humbly rejoice in his success, Phil.
You know, as Winston Wolfe would say, just because you are a character doesn't mean you have character.
I got a whole bunch of them.
Yeah. So without any further ado, I want to introduce our guest for the day. He is on tour with half of Steely Dan, Donald Fagen, in Donald's new band, the Night Flyers. Please welcome to Groovecast Nation, Mr. Lee Falco.
Howdy, howdy.
Lee,
Welcome,
thank you,
sir.
man.
Thanks for having me.
And you know, I want to go ahead and tell everybody kind of what we're doing here. Lee has been on the road for a couple of weeks with these guys.
Yeah.
And I've been in touch with him. Really, man, I got in touch with you prior to the tour.
Yeah.
And
proactive.
And we all know what it's like being out on the road, that to put it in a very kind sense, it's tiring. You know, when you're out and you've been out on the road for a while. But this guy was just willing. He's just like, oh, man, let's just do whatever. We'll go. So we're actually over here at Groovecast Studios today. We've been carting him around. We had a little bit of lunch, getting to know each other and all this good stuff. So, again, welcome Lee into Groovecast Nation. And so, Lee, I thought what we would do is let's start out and get a little bit of background on you, a little bit of bio. So why don't you tell all the folks here, where are you from?
Yeah, I'm from Marlboro, New York, which is a small town in the Hudson Valley that I grew up in. And it's not far from the city. It's about 90 miles north of New York City, about an hour and a half. And it was a great place to grow up. And my family, my grandfather was a musician. He was a wedding singer and bass player. And my father was a big promoter of the arts, also a musician. And my dad started a music venue in my backyard when I was a kid. He used to own this church that he planned to make a performing arts center in. And the post office in town wanted the building, wanted the property, so he dismantled the building and rebuilt it in my backyard, which became a house concert series. Yeah. And so I grew up around that, and later it became a public space. And so I was always seeing amazing music right in my backyard as a little kid, and that was a big part of my childhood.
Roughly how old were you when you decided you wanted to pick up drums?
Well, they started me really young. I started taking lessons when I was 5 years old with this great teacher who's Berkeley grad, and he lives in the town of Marlboro. His name's Joe Carrozza. And so that was, for me, like I was taking lessons weekly from 5 to 15 with the same teacher. And so like just doing that made playing really second nature for me growing up.
Sure. With a guy like Joe, who was a Berkeley grad, he had obviously gone through all of the academic and pedagogical stuff that you would have to get through a school like that. Do you remember the things that he had you work on even when you first started?
It was really well-rounded. He taught me to read. We played along with music. Joe's really a master teacher, apart from being a master player. He was really good with just, getting me to learn and getting me to play.
Yeah. Do you recall, were there any particular methods that he had you work out of? Like, there's some of our Bibles of drumming are like these books like Stick
Buddy Rich
Control.
book.
There you go.
Well, yeah.
Well, we have a little story about that, don't we?
That guy asked you about if you knew Ted McKenzie.
Yeah.
He was asked to revise those books.
Yeah.
So he probably ended up with his
revisions. Yeah.
Yeah. I was so young, and I haven't opened that book in so long.
Yeah.
I don't even remember what it looks like.
You're way ahead of me.
Yeah. I mean, what a weird set of circumstances to bring that full circle.
Yeah, it doesn't surprise me.
Just again,
it's a small world, man. This music.
Yeah.
stuff.
I know it
always
illustrates a bit of the brotherhood there.
Yep.
He wrote the
he some guy owned the rights to the books, and he out of the blue approached him, like literally saw him on a gig and said, "Hey, will you revise these books? They really need some help."
Wow.
So he just said okay and did it. And he lives not far from you.
Yeah, he was in
Or
Albany.
he did.
He
Ted
was
McKenzie.
He's here now, but
he was in Albany, and now he lives just about 10 miles west of here.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, yeah, and I just met him just a few weeks ago. So yeah, he's kind of new on the scene.
So as far as the teacher, the
Joe Carozza, yeah.
Was he pretty, into like the rudimental background, the foundation, and all that initially, or did he let you kind of run with your preference, or?
It was really well rounded. You know, I think we did a little bit of everything. We did, we did some reading. We played along with music. There was nothing specific. He wasn't very strict about anything.
Didn't have to earn your way into.
No, and like I said, I was so fortunate to have my parents, taking me to these lessons every week. As a little kid, at 5 years old, I don't even know what.
That's incredible.
Yeah, so it was just sort of a part of my childhood, and I didn't even really take it so seriously for some of those years. It was just.
Did you like it though?
I did like it. Yeah,
not regret it.
No.
Resentful of it.
No, I was never resentful of it, and I had a band when I was really young, about that age, like 6 or 7. My dad found these other kids, and we started this rock band called the Chills, where I was playing and singing, and we would do classic rock songs like Neil Young and the Rolling Stones and the Beatles, and I was really obsessed with the Beatles at a young age. So
that's a good problem to have.
That's a good
I was
obsession.
really, really obsessed with John Lennon, and I think my parents just saw that and sort of, supported it wholeheartedly.
So while we're on the topic of this band and you guys playing some classic rock and classic pop, who were some of also your early drum influences?
Ringo was a big one. Then I started getting into the Who and the Rolling Stones and Led Zeppelin, and so pretty much the Ramones. I like the Ramones.
Yeah.
A lot of classic rock, Jimi Hendrix, so all those guys.
That's a pretty good foundation, sir.
I'd say, yeah, it's a good start.
When you were in school, did you go to public school?
I did, yeah.
Did you get involved in any of the band programs?
I was already playing drums and had a band at 7 years old. So by the time I got to middle school, I think is when you start concert band. I played the saxophone. You start
fifth grade.
Fifth grade, fifth grade. But so I'd already been playing drums. I could already read, and so I felt there was no reason to relearn.
Yeah, man.
How to read.
Just get into something
So
new.
I played saxophone all throughout school. Alto sax.
That's very cool, man. Did you ever, since you were playing that melodic instrument, did you ever take any lessons from Joe or from anybody on any melodic percussion instruments like keyboards?
I took piano lessons too as a kid, and and I've always been singing too. I love to sing.
You know what? I'm going to go ahead and say right now, that's why Fagan didn't call me or you for this gig, John. It's because this guy sings like a freaking bird.
But they won't let a mic near me. I figured out that I don't sing that bad. It's just my Tourette's sort of thing where I'll just berate people, like Keith Jarrett might.
Yeah. Nice call.
I would have had that gig if I could control the thoughts in my head, is what I'm saying.
Yeah. So what we want to tell our listening audience also is if you go see Lee play on this current tour, he is singing background vocals on quite a few tunes. Aren't you?
More than half of them.
Yeah. And so keep in mind that aside from holding down that drum chair, he's also holding down the background vocal chair as well. So that's awesome, man. That's fantastic.
A couple of Donald songs have some pretty good background parts in them. So I guess you have to be capable.
Yeah, a lot of falsetto stuff.
Yeah, I was going to say, a lot. No kidding. I mean, all kidding aside when I say this, there are some background vocal arrangements on some Steely Dan and Donald Fagen records that are better than entire written songs that other people have. Just the arrangements of the background vocals are just brilliant on some of those. So Lee, you went through school, you got into the music program, you played some saxophone. Was there ever any thought in your head about becoming a music major in college?
Yeah, there was. I think so. You know, I always was around music. I loved music, and I think that was really the only thing that I wanted to do, really. I think maybe I was also interested in architecture a little bit, but it was always music for me. And I was always gigging a lot. By the time I was 16 and got my car, you know, I was like gigging all the time, whether it was at my dad's club or around the Hudson Valley. And so, yeah, I applied to a bunch of music schools, and I went to SUNY Purchase for a couple semesters, studied jazz there. But I dropped out after 3 semesters. I also got into NYU and New School and some of the CUNY colleges for jazz.
Man, that's awesome. I want to talk just a little bit about the time that you spent there. Who was your applied teacher?
Richie Morales.
Oh,
You know Richie
okay.
Morales?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Chicago.
Is he from Chicago?
He is.
You know, I didn't know that. That's news to me.
We'll talk. We need to get his contact information after this.
I'm hoping he is, because
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure he is.
yeah. So
Well, let me
go
let
ahead.
me just say, what a great drummer there.
Yeah.
out in the clear.
Oh, he's a monster.
Killer,
Yeah.
man.
Yeah. What did you guys study?
All different stuff. You know, he was pretty laid back in the lessons. We'd work out of books, and he'd print stuff out, and you know, transcriptions. But it was all pretty. It was all really whatever I wanted to do. A lot of times, I led the lessons, and he'd come back to me with, you know, he'd print things out from books that sort of applied to whatever I wanted to learn.
Yeah.
You know, I'd come in and be like, oh, I want to be able to, you know, play more polyrhythms or something. And you know, he'd come in the next week with a printout of something or other, you know.
So
applied.
in that headspace at that time, who were you listening to, and drumming wise, who'd you like?
I don't know. That's a tough question. You know, at that point, I was being subjected to a lot of jazz through the
Right.
college, and I was never really like a giant bebop fan. You know, I grew up listening to classic rock, and I've always loved singer-songwriter music. And so for me being there, you know, I was trying to get into more jazz, but it was sort of hard for me, really. Like I don't know if it was where my heart was at, but I was really like Art Blakey and Vernel Fournier and Jimmy Cobb and some of those guys.
Yeah, man. I know them.
The
I like
jazz
them.
players.
I was gonna say, you know what?
That's right down my list, isn't it?
I was
Phil?
gonna say, and you know what that is, man? That's straight groove, man.
Totally.
Yeah.
Straight groove,
Just
man.
Yeah.
to
I
the
mean,
point,
you're not
feels like
gonna
$1
you're not
million
gonna get a better swing groove than Art Blakey, Vernel Fournier, or Cobb. You're just not.
Nope.
I mean, so it makes perfect sense, man.
And a lot of times when they played, it didn't go over my head.
Yeah.
That
Don't
helped a
lie,
lot.
Chalden.
Yeah.
Don't
I'm
lie.
just telling you, man.
Yeah. No, that's awesome, man. That's really cool. Did you like in college the classroom stuff?
No, not really.
Yeah. That's a question I ask everybody. Yeah.
I started to resent it, and I started playing in a punk band while I was
Okay.
at Purchase, and my roommate and I started this band called Earl Boykins, where we were
Yeah.
we were playing like pretty serious punk music, and you know, being at school was sort of tough. It's like the first time you're getting away from your parents, and like, you know, a lot of drinking and partying going on, and it's
Sure.
sort of tough place to be when you're also studying jazz and, you know, trying to do something that you love and pursue this career that can be pretty tough. So I found it difficult being there. So, you know.
I don't think it stunted your growth, though. I think you're doing
No, it
just
worked out
fine.
all right. Yeah.
I think you're doing
Yeah, and I
just
think it was the
fine.
right move. I learned a lot while I was there, but I was playing a lot. I had some other touring opportunities, and it was always a problem for me to leave if I had some gigs or, you know, missed classes. They weren't really cool with that. So, yeah.
We found out that virtually everybody that goes to school, Berkeley, SUNY, wherever,
Yeah.
that I would say 95% of the time, if they don't finish, it's because they got a gig. You know what I mean? And they go out and they start touring. Which, if you think about it, that's kind of like the same scenario of like the college football player, college basketball player. They leave school early because what?
Opportunity.
There you go. You get a gig. That's what college is supposed to do anyway, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, man, I think that's great.
Yeah, I learned a lot about harmony and theory while I was there, which was cool. Jazz theory.
Sure.
Which was good. It was sort of funny. There's always a drummer's curve when you're in these music colleges. They're like, oh, you guys, everyone do this assignment. You guys just, try to hang on, whatever. You're going to pass. Don't worry.
Well, check this out, man. I don't know if you're aware of this, but at Berkeley, 100% serious, they literally have theory for drummers.
Yeah. Well, that would be that. I wish there was that because I was so behind everyone else, and they're talking about.
Man, you're fine. Don't bow down to that pressure, man. You do good. You stick it out, man. And do the real theory, man. You earn your stripes.
Nah, don't listen to him. I know it's not lost on you that he mentioned Ringo.
Absolutely.
Charlie Watts.
Yes.
Blakey.
Charlie got a master's
and he
degree
quit
at Berkeley.
school. Kindred spirits, bro.
I gotcha. I told you.
I just want to make sure everybody out there understands. This kid and I are practically like sitting on each other's laps right now.
What did I tell you hours before we even went and picked him up? I said, man, this is going to be a home run straight down the middle out of the ballpark for you, John.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We have a much in common.
You guys have identical career paths, except you're not playing with Donald Fagen.
Well, I mean, I told him I could do it in a month or so. And he couldn't wait.
Lee, you were talking about Hudson Valley, and I mean that is a deceptively fertile ground for music.
Yeah, it really is.
A lot of stuff is going on up there.
Yeah.
And so you mentioned that well before college, you were gigging professionally up there. Well, tell us about some of these first pro gigs, some of these gigs that you were doing.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of musicians that live around the Hudson Valley. There's a lot of artists and, a great community there and a tight-knit community. There's a lot of these small towns up and down the Hudson River. And with the Chills, we were playing like street festivals and bazaars and birthday parties and things like that. But then as I got a little older, and I met Connor Kennedy, who's the guitar player with the Night Flyers. We started playing in more bars around Woodstock and Saugerties, which has an amazing history for music. Obviously, the Woodstock Festival wasn't in the town of Woodstock; it was about an hour and a half away in Sullivan County. But the town of Woodstock, there's a bunch of venues and close to New York City, so occasionally I'd go into the city, but not much until later. As I started playing more professionally. But yeah, there's a lot of clubs and there's money to be made up there too, which is nice. There's bars that would hire bands and pay the bands, and in a lot of ways I feel like the scene in the Hudson Valley is better than New York City, as long as you have a car.
I was going to say, I think there's a lot of truth to that, man.
Yeah.
Absolutely, there's a lot of currency in that because, I mean, when you take into factor, as you said, the economic aspect of it, and then if you do live in the city, I mean, it's a zero-sum game unless you've got a huge gig.
I still haven't gotten past load-in.
Oh, I know. Yeah,
it's got to be easier.
I got a triple, I got a triple park out here, and then I got to load in, then I got to drive for 30 minutes until I can find a free parking place on the street, or all of a sudden all my money for the gig is gone into parking.
Yeah.
It's tough, man.
Yeah. That sounds awesome.
Yeah.
And then, I mean, just trying to live down there is a nightmare for me. I mean, I guess I'm spoiled having grown up in the Hudson Valley and always had space to practice.
Man. Yeah.
Something you take for granted in the city, it's going to cost you $600 a month to get a practice space.
Yeah.
Maybe that's an exaggeration, but
well, maybe not. At least $600 to park your car.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's a bargain.
One of the things that we have to touch on that we talked about briefly prior to turning on the microphones, almost everybody that knows anything about that area up there knows about Levon Helm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you were privy to see one of his concerts, one of his out in the barn.
Yeah, I got to go to a ramble, and Stanton Moore opened that ramble too, which was cool to see. But yeah, I saw Levon once. My dad took me to see him when I was much younger, which I didn't really remember. But Connor, my buddy, started working at the barn when he was about 16 or 17. and he got me some tickets, and I took Joe Carrozza, I remember, and we saw a ramble, which was incredible, and Levon's always been one of my favorite drummers and singers, and that was really cool to see. And later, after Levon passed away, we started playing at the barn, and so I'm really glad that I got to go to a ramble that Levon played, and I got to shake his hand, and I wish I got to hang with him more, but it was cool just to have.
And then in turn, you've become pretty connected with a lot of people that, from the barn and that staff and what have you.
Amy Helm sort of took us under her wing, and she would have us back up. She had this residency called "Oh to Be Home Again," and we were the house band there for maybe 7 or 8 shows, and she would have all different guests from around the Hudson Valley and beyond come, and we got to back some amazing people there. John Sebastian came, and he was at a bunch of them. Graham Nash we played with. Donald, that's really where we met Donald. Donald is Amy's stepfather. And so it was Happy Traum and all sorts of people that
That's awesome.
are up there in Woodstock and around. So that was cool.
Man, we've already talked about a couple of your buddies that are just instrumental in your musical growth and that you're actually out on the road with right now.
Yeah.
And I want to talk about those guys because you've had an association with these guys for years. These are not something that just happened over the last 6 months and all of a sudden you're out on the road with Fagan. And you've already mentioned Connor Kennedy. Tell us about also Will Bryant and Brandon Morrison.
Yeah. So, Connor and I met when we were about 15. And that's okay. We started playing together, and we had a band. It was always called the Connor Kennedy Band, and there was a younger bass player in that. And then we started playing with some older guys. Jeremy Baum was playing organ in that band, and this guy Kyle Esposito was playing bass. And those guys were really cool to play with. They were like mentors for me because they were older, seasoned players. And we were playing in a lot of bars. And I also started playing with this other guitar prodigy named Miles Mancuso, who actually used to he was living here, I think, a year ago. Did you ever come across him? Miles Mancuso.
You go to school down here?
No, he was just living down here playing. I don't know how often, I don't know how much he was playing. I think he just moved to Nashville. But he was a great player, man. He's a really great guitar player, Miles Mancuso, especially at a young age. He was like 16. He was burning on the guitar. And I started playing with him, and Brandon was in the band playing bass, Brandon Morrison, and we became fast friends, and then soon Brandon started playing with Connor. We started all playing together with Miles and Connor, and Connor's thing started taking off, and that's when we started playing Woodstock at the barn, and we did this cool residency called Cover to Cover, where we were playing full records all the way through at the Bearsville Theater, and right before that, Will came into the picture, and Will moved from Austin, Texas, and his uncle is Byron Isaacs, who is in Levon's band and is currently in the Lumineers, and so Will came into the picture. It's funny, Will came to the barn. Will wanted to move out of Austin, so he was driving around the country looking for cities that he liked, and he came to Woodstock and sat in at the barn, and we were leaving to go on a tour opening for this band Sister Sparrow and the Dirty Birds with Connor. And, Will was around our age and played great keys and sang great. And we said, hey, what are you doing the next couple weeks? You want to come in the van with us and play in our band? And so with one day's notice, he jumped on the tour. And that's when we came down and played Smith's Old Bar in Atlanta here.
Carried his B3.
Carried his B3.
Back steps.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's how we met Will. And then from there, we started playing together all the time. We sort of became a house band around Woodstock, and we'd back people up. We'd get gigs backing Jay Collins, who's a great sax player, also is in Levon's band, and is in Greg Allman's band, was in Greg Allman's band. This residency Cover to Cover we did probably around 2013, I think it was 2013 or 14, but every month we would do a full record at the Bearsville Theater, which is a great historic theater in Woodstock that Albert Grossman built. And the first one we did was All Things Must Pass. Then we did Blind Faith. Then we did The Meters. And we didn't make it through the whole year. They did Radiohead, The Bends, and Neil Young, Stars and Bars. and that was it.
Yeah, it's nice, man.
But
Yeah.
that was a great experience. We were getting good at like learning records note for note. I know I learned a lot from doing those residencies and learning the parts of some great drummers, and that definitely helped getting into the Fagan thing because there's a lot of that going on those records.
Isn't it interesting how that stuff, by happenstance kind of comes around full circle, that you learned these records note for note, and now all of a sudden this current gig that you've got, man, you are covering some of the world's greatest drummers on some of the world's greatest drum tracks.
Yeah.
And just some of the videos, like I was showing John a couple of things, man, you are nailing some of those parts, man, like on Josie, like some of those signature Keltner fills and stuff on there, man, just some of the great nailing the grooves, like on the chorus, the offbeat ride thing that you're doing.
Oh, thanks.
Great, man.
Yeah, I love Jim Keltner. He's one of my favorite drummers. And what's your favorite Jim Keltner record?
My favorite Jim?
Yeah.
Bring the Family. John Hyatt.
Okay, I got to check that one out.
Yeah.
It's funny, like there's these drummers like Fernell Fournier, for example. There's only really one record that I know of Fernell Fournier. It's Live at the Pershing. Mm-hmm. But I've listened to it so many times, and I love his playing so much that it's only really one record for me that
let me tell
makes him my favorite drummer.
If that's the only record that you had of Vernell Fournier, it's still justified.
But it is the only one.
It's still justified, man. But no, Vernell had a little bit of a, I'm trying to think the nicest way to say this, a little bit of a checkered past and career. You know? He did. There are several other Ahmad Jamal records that he's on. He's
I have heard some of them too. Yeah,
and there are some other folks that he played with as well. But he hit some hard times, man, and he ended up being a cab driver for a while.
Yeah,
and then he ended up moving back down south in later life. He got really sick before he passed away from his long illness. But getting back to that, the Vernell Live at the Pershing, man, if that's the only thing if you only ever heard Poinciana, that's enough.
Yeah, he's got such a great groove on that whole record. It's amazing.
Gosh, man.
Oh, that's it.
And for Keltner, it's sort of similar where the Ry Cooder record Paradise and Lunch,
good stuff.
Man, that's one of my favorite records and some of the best drumming. And a lot of that Ry Cooder stuff.
He's some cool stuff with Frizzell too.
Yeah,
Gone Like a Train is a brilliant record.
I do like that record.
Keltner,
man. Yeah.
There's also another one that he kills on, which is really the same personnel as Bring the Family, is Little Village.
Yeah,
we had that. We used that as a track on the show one time.
Incredible, Keltner.
Yeah.
Hey, let's get back to talking about Lee, because I might not. I might stay off track here if we keep talking.
No,
about
I like
Jim.
talking about Jim Keltner too. But
Man.
yeah. So,
this is a perfect segue to talk about your relationship with Will and Brendan and these guys. That you guys have a recording studio together called Building Records.
We do, yeah. So the space that was the house concert series that my dad owned moved in 2009 to a public venue called the Falcon, and it's a great venue in upstate New York. You could check it out at www.liveatthefalcon.com. And he has amazing shows there 5 nights a week. And he had just opened a second venue downstairs called the Falcon Underground, which is more like a pub, less of a, listening room. But it's a great spot too. And so now he's booking like 500 shows a year there. Ooh. There's music there every night. And it's in this tiny town of Marlboro. It's really amazing what my dad does. And there's never a cover there. Anyway, I got off subject of your... But so the building is what we would call the house concert space, which used to be the Falcon around my house. And after college, I moved into the building, and it's a separate structure on the property. It's really beautiful. It's a lot of wood and big cathedral ceilings. And I was living in there and, doing rehearsals out of there, and started getting into recording. That was another reason that I left Purchase, was that I really wanted to learn about recording and producing. And, so that's what I started doing in the building. And Brandon and Will started coming into the picture and really helping with that. Brandon went to school in St. Rose in Albany and studied music production, and so he's got a good sense of the equipment and engineering, and so I learned a lot from him and just started buying and collecting gear. And there were a few people that really helped me with equipment. Byron Isaacs and Peter Cole. I have a band with them I'm in their band called Lost Leaders. And they started recording there, and they left a bunch of equipment there that really helped me out a lot. And from there, it just sort of took off, and we've been producing records out of there. We've maybe done 5 or 6 records in the last year. And one of them is by Kyle Miller. It's called Little Nothing, which is a good one to check out. That was produced by Brandon, me, and Will. And we've sort of been going under the name The Package. And we've been like the house band out of the studio. Another one Brandon and I produced is Willa Vincitor's record. It's actually under Willa and Company, and it's called Better Days. That's a cool record that we did, and is charting on the blues charts right now, which is great.
Right. Yeah.
And a few other things, here and there, and the space has just been functioning, and there've been a few records that we just rented the space out for, and Will and Brandon produced a record, and it's sort of just become our home base. This unit, Brandon, Will, Connor, and there's a bunch of other guys up there in the Hudson Valley who are real close friends, and
it's a collective.
It's like our,
that's awesome.
We got our road cases in the basement and all our gear upstairs, and we all just collect instruments, and so there's all sorts of stuff up there. There's a Hammond B3 and a Whirly and a Rhodes, and I got all these drums that I've been collecting, and Brandon's got all these basses, and I just got this Soundcraft board. It's a 36-channel Soundcraft Sapphire, and we're running Pro Tools, and there's some nice outboard pre's and compressors and some nice microphones, and we've just been slowly accruing gear.
So do you like the engineering side of things? Are you getting really into that?
Yeah. We all sort of share that.
Mm-hmm. And you just dive in and
we just do it.
Learn as you go.
Pretty much. Yeah, I was never, formally taught, but I started with a little M box like we got right here. And I mean, the room is so great that people would come in and go, "Oh man, I got this thing. It's just sitting in my basement. You should take it." Or I got these microphones sitting around. You want to borrow them? And from there, we just started doing it and started saving up money. And now we got some nice stuff. We got a nice Flea microphone. And
it's a shame that hack has you out on the road right now and won't allow you to get back to the studio to do some real
Tying
work.
these young creatives down.
I'm telling you.
Yeah.
Got the golden handcuffs on this guy over here.
Rehashing some old minor hits and ridiculous.
I think it's time to tell him that we picked this guy up from the Four Seasons.
Why don't you go ahead and take off the tour, do the rest of the tour, and we can get him home and let him be creative.
Okay.
Your dream comes true,
Done.
and he gets to.
It's a win-win for all of us.
He becomes the next T-Bone Burnett or whatever.
I'm working on it, man.
I would trade that in to do that. So Lee, let's get to the big topic of the day. Let's talk about Donald and how did the gig with the Night Flyers happen? How did it come about?
Yeah. Like I said, we had done some of the stuff with him at the barn, and there's also this benefit that happens once a year for Family of Woodstock, a charity in Woodstock. That's a Bob Dylan benefit. And we were the house band at that the last 2 years, and Donald came and played at. And so we had played with him a dozen or so times around Woodstock, and Connor had become pretty good friends with him. Connor sat in with the Dukes of September at the Beacon Theater, and I just stayed in touch with Donald. And at one point in this past winter around December, actually even before that, Connor had mentioned something about doing a Donald residency at the barn, and it fell through. And then, in the winter he called and was like, yeah, Donald wants to do a tour. And when he first suggested it, I didn't really believe it. So I just remember sort of being like, yeah, okay, well, that would be amazing, man. That would be great. We'll see. And I went on a trip to India with my girlfriend not long after that phone call came. And then while I was in India, Donald sent a bunch of tunes for us to learn. And so I was, in these little hotel rooms in India with my headphones on, trying to learn how to play the groove of Green Flower Street and all these other songs. And it's just funny. It was sort of stressful the whole time I was there because I had this, audition with Donald Fagen lingering over me this whole trip. but it was still an amazing trip. I highly recommend traveling to India. Anyway.
Well, let me ask you this one. This is the question I always ask everybody that goes, did either you or your girlfriend get sick over there?
Not really.
You're the only people I know that hasn't gotten sick.
You know, it was like every time I ate, I felt sick, but I was just like, I never got deadly ill.
Yeah.
You know, I would just have a grumbly stomach after every meal, but I got more and more used to it. Bananas helped with that.
Yes.
Yeah. So anyway, when I got back, we met at the barn and we did an audition sort of with Donald, and he had booked we had one day booked, and then the day before he said, let's do the whole week, which was a good sign. And we got in and we played Greenflower Street with him once, and he said, what do you guys want to do a tour this summer of Europe and Japan? And we're like, yeah, that would be amazing. And so that started it, and it was funny, so we had 4 days of rehearsal audition blocked out, and the first one we had learned maybe 4 songs he had sent us. And after the first audition, when he asked us to do the tour, he said, okay, so let's meet back here tomorrow at noon, and maybe we could try Kid Charlemagne and Hey 19. He just named off, like 5 Steely Dan songs. I was like, all right, see you at noon tomorrow. And so,
you're just cramming that night.
We just went home and barely got any rest. And just like learned some of the most iconic songs. And I had already known them, but I'd never played them before. And some of them I didn't know, really, to be honest. I'd maybe heard a couple times. And so, we started cramming these songs. And over the next couple months, we did a bunch of rehearsals, and it takes us to now. And we're on we played our 8th gig last night.
Awesome, man.
Yeah.
To take just a quick step back, this guy Fagan he is legendary in a lot of different ways.
Yeah.
And he's also legendary from just everybody has a different story about his personality. And tell us what it was like the very first time that you met him and spoke to him. What was it like?
I think the first time we played with him was at a Bob Dylan benefit, and I think we played Ballad of a Thin Man with him. It's hard to remember now, but at those sort of things he was particularly laid back because he was just one of a bunch of guests, and it was a house band, and he's sort of shy. Mm-hmm. I remember the first time I talked to him, we were in the green room, and I said, I was just trying to make small talk, and it didn't really work so well. I was like, so you going on the road this summer? And he was like, yeah. And then I was like, oh, it's like, hard pulling conversation out of him.
One of the best descriptions I've ever heard of both Becker and Fagan is I know there's saxophone player that plays in Steely Dan, a guy named Walt Weiskopf, Walt. And I remember I was hanging out backstage with him one time when they were playing here at Hi-Fi Buys Amphitheater, or Lakewood Amphitheater, and I asked him the same question, and Walt goes, let's just say that neither of them suffer any fools.
Yeah.
I thought that's probably a pretty good description of those guys. So now when it came to getting this gig and inking this gig down to where you knew you actually had it, did you do all that with Donald, or did you get the call from management?
No, it was all with Donald.
That's very cool, man. Yeah, because that doesn't happen ever.
Yeah. There was never anyone from management at any of the rehearsals, or he's managed by Irving Azoff, who's so it's pretty big up there in the management office.
Even just like as far as arrangements, pay, all that, it was all Donald just said, here's what's happening.
Sort of. Well, it sort of worked out where Connor was the liaison for the band, because Connor was closest with Donald, and that's always just seemed to be easiest because we're all friends, we're all peers, and so we're all going to make the same amount of money, and so it was there was a little negotiation, but they offered us a good amount, and for us, it's like a dream opportunity, and we didn't want to mess anything up, but we were he's treating us great, and we're staying at nice hotels and buses, and for us it's a dream come true, and So yeah, there was not much. It was never really weird. At first, it was like we knew about the tour, and Donald, it was just Donald saying, "Okay, you want to do this tour," and maybe like 4 months went by where that was all we had.
Just hopefully it's gonna happen.
Yeah, like nothing more. No, not even a money discussion or anything. Like we were just waiting for, okay, like what are the dates? What are the, it was like, are we gonna sign a contract? We were just sort of waiting, and it was really strange at the time. And I remember not wanting to tell people because it didn't seem real at first, which was.
It's not terribly solidified. And,
yeah, it just seemed like it could fall through at any moment. And the European part did fall through. We were supposed to go over and do a bunch of festivals in Europe, and I think the classic East and West came up, which was a Irving Azoff promotion at the baseball stadiums in L.A. and New York. And so I think that's why the European thing fell through. But then we got all these U.S. dates, and so that was cool.
Awesome. So is Connor the de facto MD music director of this, or?
No.
Donald is then, I guess.
Yeah.
He's hands-on. He's significantly more hands-on than I thought he might be then.
Donald?
Yeah.
Yeah. He's always willing to compromise though, and we're always, throwing suggestions out there, and he's willing to change things and sort of, he goes with the flow.
How long did you guys rehearse prior to going out on the road?
We rehearsed a lot. We did maybe 20 rehearsals or so, and the first 10 were without Zach Chinikian, who's in the band, and we added him about halfway through, and he's not in the photos. You'll see the promo photos. Is
that the saxophonist?
Yeah, he plays sax and guitar and sings. Okay. And we were missing something. There's a lot of horn parts. We didn't have any horn players. There's a lot of vocals, and sometimes when there's tough rhythms going on, it's hard to do some of the singing for everyone.
Uh-huh.
And so Zach really brought the band together, and he's really versatile. He plays great guitar, plays great sax, sings great, and so he was added halfway through, and we were rehearsing at the barn in Woodstock, which was cool, Levon's barn. We did a lot of rehearsing. I always recorded the rehearsals, which was really beneficial for me, listening back to all of them.
Was Donald at all those rehearsals?
Yep.
Man, if it's possible for me to be more impressed with Donald Fragan, I'm even more impressed now.
But we did do a lot without him.
Yeah.
Yeah, we did.
Just on your own accord?
Oh, yeah, all the time.
Yeah.
We were
digging in.
Yeah, every day. Even if it wasn't all of us. Will lives close to me in Marlboro. Me and him would play together, Brandon. We would just, in any configuration, we'd constantly be playing the stuff without Donald.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So now the gig is happening, got through rehearsals, it's time to get out on the road now. So let's just talk about typical gig days when you're out. So today you've got an off day, so you're hanging out with us. Poor kid, man, right? Yeah. So
I gave him a tip for tonight. He'll forget it. He'll forgive us.
So tomorrow's a gig day. Okay, you're already in town. You're already in Atlanta. Tell us what the itinerary is.
Nothing too out of the ordinary. Probably sleep late and do some yoga. Maybe play on my drum pad a little bit.
What kind of yoga you do?
The basic poses.
Like hatha yoga?
I don't know. Maybe I just do like freestyle yoga. I just stretch a lot. Constantly stretching. And we'll go to sound check, and it's pretty cushy. Like, my stuff is set up. It's amazing for me. I've never had that before.
There's something special about a drum tech, isn't it, John?
Yeah.
He gets to lead up to the gig.
I know, man.
I think more than anything, I wouldn't even mind loading in and setting up.
It's the breaking down.
Afterwards, man, if I can walk away.
Yeah.
That's gold, baby.
So
that is just the best.
You got, let's say 8:00 gig. Okay.
Yeah.
What time do you guys do sound check?
We sound check around 4.
Okay.
We usually get there an hour and ahead and eat. And, we'll play a little bit. We'll come up with the set list together, which is cool.
That's very cool.
Yeah. and we'll try some stuff. Donald has been writing some songs, and we've been working up some of those in the sound check. And really one we've been working up, but it's really close, and I think we're going to play it in the next couple shows. It's a nice tune he's written.
Very cool. So you guys are doing kind of like what most people do. Sound check is a sound check, but it's a kind of a de facto rehearsal.
Oh yeah, it's pretty much a rehearsal most of the time. Whether we're working on a new tune, or Donald wants to fine tune something, or
Man, one of the more, this is a quick thing that just made me think about it, was talking about sound checks. One of the more interesting, probably the most interesting sound check I've ever been to was back about, what was it, John, about 7 or 8 months ago. We went over to Athens, and we hung out with Adam Deitch that plays in Lettuce, and he goes, man, come over to the sound check. I want you to come over to the sound check. Man, they sound checked for an hour and a half, and it was all writing was what they were doing, and they were recording it at the same time. And
they were just jamming?
Yeah.
Oh,
and so
cool.
what they did, man, was as soon as they finished, they walked out. We were standing behind the sound desk, and when they walked back out, we stood behind the sound desk and listened to basically what was a writing session.
Wow, that's
for
cool.
them. So that they take it to another level.
Yeah.
Those guys do, as far as like with what they do on a sound check. It's basically a writing session for them.
Yeah.
So it's interesting also, man, that you guys, I've been looking at your set list. The set list changes.
Yeah.
From night to night.
Yeah.
And I'm not talking about just order. I'm talking about new tunes jump in there from night to night.
Yeah.
Did you guys rehearse all those tunes prior to going out, or did you just rehearse some on the way? Or I should say, on sound checks and gigs?
Everything that we've done so far has been rehearsed previously to the tour. Last night we did Deacon Blues because we were in Alabama,
cool.
Which was one of the lesser rehearsed tunes beforehand that just sort of... We did play it once or twice before the tour with Donald, and then it really just came together in the last two. We did it on a sound check in Florida, and then we did it in the sound check yesterday, and it came together all right. The vocals are sort of tough on that one. A lot of female,
they're thick,
high
man.
vocals, but sound pretty good. I was listening back to it today. Things like that, he'll maybe we've been like IGY. He wasn't quite happy with, so we sort of deconstructed that one in the last rehearsal, and we played it last night, and it's just things like that. And then we worked on his new tune, Film Creep, it's called, and that one's close. We pretty much have the whole form down. We just haven't gotten vocals on it yet, but it's exciting to work on his new stuff, and I know he has a couple more tunes, and even mentioned the prospect of making a record, which would be really cool.
Wow.
Yeah.
Maybe it could be done at Building Records.
We'll see.
Yeah.
Although, I don't know.
and he was saying that if with the prospects of doing a record, it would be a solo record, not a Steely Dan record.
Yeah, it was mentioned in an interview that I wasn't at, but it's published in a lot. They did this interview with it was like a conference call interview, and he mentioned it, so it's printed in all these publications around the country right now. A quote from him saying, he'd like to get in the studio with us, which would be amazing. We'll see.
That would be. So,
yeah.
All right. So we're still on gig day, and we'll get through with sound check. In between sound check and actual gig time, to me, and I think John kind of feels the same way, a lot of times that's the worst part of the day. I hate a lot of downtime between like sound check and gig.
Yeah.
Do you have any kind of a routine or anything that you do in between there?
No, me and the band, we're all really good friends, so we all just sort of hang and goof off, and that's about it.
It helps, man, when you like everybody.
Makes a big difference.
We're all in the green room, listening to music, or maybe sometimes we'll go over some stuff. Like yesterday, we were going over harmonies. I practice on a pad.
Cool.
Eat chips and hummus, and
all right.
try to relax.
Yeah. Roughly how long is the show?
It's about an hour and a half, 16 or 17 songs. Maybe an hour. It says like an hour 45.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's usually what it is.
No pressure. What's your favorite song to play?
Well, I like playing Josie because I get a drum solo on it, and I feel like I'm getting better and enjoying taking drum solos, which is cool. So I like playing that one, and it's a nice feature for me. But and I love that groove. I love Keltner. It's sort of a loose feel. I like the rockers. I like playing Bodhisattva and Black Friday, and they're all great songs, man. There's nothing that I like playing the Nightfly. I love that song.
Yeah.
I really love all the songs, which is great. Sometimes it's a drag when you're on a gig and you're not really into the material, but this material is some of the best in the world.
Hands down.
Songs are incredible. I like playing Kid Charlemagne. I like that song. Yeah.
Now that you rattled off this epic list of tunes that you get to play, I want to talk a little bit about the drummers that recorded those originals.
Yeah.
If you go all the way back, you're talking about the guys like Jim Gordon, Hodder.
Yeah.
Of course, then you got Porcaro,
Yeah.
Keltner that you mentioned, Rick Marotta, another one of your favorites that you talked about. You
Yeah.
got Steve Gadd. And then if you want to really bring it up to speed, you got Keith Carlock.
Yeah.
Stuff that we're dealing with as well.
Yeah.
Now, when you're going through and you're working on these things, either in rehearsal or sound check or even on the gig, I know you were saying that the sound engineer records this stuff and gives it back to you, lets you listen to it, from the previous night. Do you ever get direct input from Donald from the standpoint of like, hey, I want you to play this thing a little bit more like Gadd played this, or hey, I want you to play this a little bit more like that? Or is there any specifics that he talks to you about?
No, it's sort of the opposite, where he doesn't want us to do it just like the record. Particularly in the guitar department, he'll say, don't play the solos from the record. He even suggested once that Connor just didn't mind if Connor didn't want to play the intro to Reelin' in the Years the same way it is on the record.
Wow, and that's signature, man. That's surprising.
He was like, he could do it. Yeah, you do it whatever you want.
Very cool.
Yeah, so he's pretty. Yeah, he's pretty cool about that, and he's into us putting our own spin on anything, and he'll tell us if he doesn't like it.
Does he play the intro the same?
Yeah, he does.
That would Didn't get roasted by 4 trillion hardcore fans.
I'm trying to think what you would do other than that. I mean, because it's a part of the song.
Yeah, it's a pretty signature.
Yeah. So
he's a smart kid, man. He's playing it as he should.
Absolutely. Yeah. So Lee,
let's get into some gear, man.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Our listeners would Shanghai all of us if we didn't do this. As I like to say, there's only one thing that drummers like more than getting your hands on gear, and that's hearing other people talk about it. God, they love, our listeners love to hear us talk about gear, man. We'll get 1,000 listens if we're talking about snare drums.
Try my best to remember what I even have. I'm the worst, man.
So, well,
someone asked me the other day, they said, is that maple or birch? And I went, I don't know.
Yeah. Well,
I really don't know. I think they're maple.
Yeah, you're a big vintage guy.
Yeah, I love vintage
like
drums.
Older drums. Tell us your kit that you got out here with Fagan.
Yeah, I'm playing a vintage Ludwig gold sparkle kit, and it's actually 2 different kits. Usually spare people the story, but we're at a drum talk.
Yeah, you gotta tell it, man.
You might even need to get into.
So I bought my first vintage drum set from a music store on consignment a couple years back, and it was this vintage gold sparkle Ludwig that I walked into the music store, wasn't expecting to buy anything, but it caught my eye and I had to buy it. And I got really high from the purchase. I was like, just bought this vintage drum set, and I played it on gigs for the last bunch of years, and it's a 20-inch bass drum, 13-inch rack tom, and a 16-inch floor tom, and that's a 1965 Ludwig, and the insides are painted white, which is pretty cool. And it came with a WFL 58 snare, matching snare, and that was a great drum set, and I got played a lot of gigs on that one. And so then when we got this Fagan gig, I always really liked playing with small kits. I never really played with 2 toms, rack toms, and so when I got this gig, it was I was sort of struggling internally whether I should play a bigger drum set or not, because all these guys like Carlock and anyone that's been on the Steely Dan gig has always used bigger kits, 2 rack toms if not more. And when we were rehearsing at Levon's, I always just played a 3-piece kit, and I was really comfortable like that. But I sort of felt like I would be judged if I used a small kit. Like I needed to have a bigger drum set.
His kit's so small.
Yeah. But seriously, I felt like people would look at the drums and say, think it was like some sort of, I don't know, that they would
lazy.
Draw conclusions, that I didn't have a lot of drums. I couldn't handle all those drums or something. But anyway, so I went on on Reverb and I bought a matching vintage Gold Sparkle Ludwig that's from 1969. It's a 69 Hollywood kit. And the sizes of that, it had 2 rack toms mounted in the bass drum, and it's a 22-inch bass drum, which I knew that I wanted for this gig. I wanted a 22. And so I bought that. It's 22 bass drum, the rack toms are 12 and 13, and a 16 floor tom. And I started practicing on that and getting more and more comfortable, and now I love it. Now I don't know what I'm going to play when I get back home, because I really like having all these drums now. And they sound really good together. And so on this tour right now, I have a mix match of the two. I'm using both the 16-inch floor toms, and I found that the 13-inch tom from my first kit sounded a little better, so I'm using that one. So the toms are the 12-inch is the 69, the 13 is the 65. This first 16 is the 69, and the second 16 is the 65.
Cool, man. And then
that's the long story with my drum set.
Well, but you use one of our favorite snare drums. Tell the folks about the snare drum.
Yeah, I'm using a vintage Acrolite snare drum. And my backup snare is a great company out of Millbrook, New York called Precision Drum Company.
Mm-hmm.
And they make a lot of wraps, but they make great drums. I have one of their kits at home. And that's a nice snare as well. But the Acrolite is the
primary drum.
The winner.
Drum. Yeah.
Tell us about your cymbals.
Yeah. My ride cymbal is a vintage 20-inch A. And to the right of that, on the crash cymbal side over the second floor tom, is the Sabian cymbal that my friend's dad gave me when I was a kid. And I had it modified by this guy in Queens. And his name is escaping me right now. Maybe I'll think of it. But this guy...
Is it Nodar? Nodar Road?
No.
Okay.
Man, this kid, he's a great drummer, too. He's a young guy. And he had this workshop in Queens where he'll relathe cymbals for you for $50 a cymbal.
That's crazy.
Yeah, it was crazy. And I bought... my friend, some drummer at the Falcon, tipped me off to it. And so I went down there with a bag of cymbals and spent $200 or something and had like 4 cymbals modified, and this was one of them, this Sabian Crash. It's 18-inch Crash, and he made it sound really nice, so I like that one. Above the ride cymbal, above the 13-inch tom, is a 16-inch sort of fast Crash, and that's nice for some of the hits, some of the figures we play. It's got a quick crash. And on my left side is a 18-inch old A, vintage A that has a rivet in it that I really love. It's a great crash ride. And then my hi-hats are K recording something or other. I bought them 2 days before we left on the tour, and I'm sort of happy with them. I think, I don't know, there could be a better pair of hats, but they're doing the job for now.
Are they 14s?
No, they're 14s.
They're 14s. Yeah. Gotcha. Yeah. What's your weapon of choice? What's your favorite stick?
I just play Vic Firth 5A, classic 5A wood tip.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
What about your drum heads? What do you like?
I'm playing Aquarian drum heads.
Oh.
Yeah.
Got an Aquarian brother.
Yeah.
According to Chris Brady's.
Yeah.
He talked to Roy Burns the other day.
Yeah.
Oh, how's Roy doing?
Roy's good. I didn't. My drum teacher Joe is with Aquarian, and I mentioned to him that I'd love to get hooked up with him, and so he goes, "Yeah, call Roy Burns." And I had no idea who Roy was, and I just dialed the number, and Roy picked up, and we chatted for like a half hour, and he's a really cool guy. And then I started watching videos, and he's like a real legend, man.
I had some lessons with
player.
Roy. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And so playing Aquarian heads. I have the Performance 2 ply clear heads on my toms, and a super kick. Super kick, something like that on the bass drum. And my resonant bass drum head is really cool. It's custom painted by this great artist named Ron English, who's a pretty famous street artist. And he has this music project in Beacon, New York. And I played drums on it. And he traded me a session for this custom bass drum head. And he designed the Night Flyer logo. It's like this yin-yang bird wing thing. Looks really cool.
I've seen it on videos. It's very cool, man.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
And that's the original on
Yeah.
there. Yeah.
Man, you mentioned when we were just hanging out earlier that on this tour you are using a click for some of the tunes.
Yep.
Are you using any other type of electronics on this?
Nope. Just a click on a couple of the tunes. I play some of the more metronomic drum machine sounding tunes I like to use a click on, like New Frontier, Hey 19 I use it on, IGY I use it on. Then some of the rock, almost half the show I'm on, I like to play with a click. Well, maybe a little less than half. But I don't always like I'll turn it on and off. I'll check in with it, but I'll never move if the click starts feeling like it's on top of the beat or if it doesn't feel right, I'll just turn it off. I never really try to go get to it like. Because I noticed that when you do that, it sounds like you're rushing then, or it sounds like you're dragging.
Forced. It's forced.
It's forced. So I try not to think too much about it, or like, if it doesn't feel right, I just rather turn it off.
Yeah. And we've talked about this before, like just the physiological makeup of a band from night to night.
Yeah.
Can alter that perception.
Yeah.
And especially if you're the only one that has a click, you're going to notice it. And sometimes songs feel faster, sometimes slower.
Yeah.
So if it's used as a reference even, well, you're good. At least you're not counting off a tune, 10 BPM too fast and all that. But we're big proponents of that too. Like, man, if it's locked in, cool. If not, it's music.
Yeah.
Let it be. But so do you use it as a reference for count offs on some things?
Every tune I count off
just to make sure.
And sometimes there's intros where I'll play like the first couple bars with the click and then turn it off. Like a tune like Kid Charlemagne, for example, it just starts with the hi-hat, or Josie just starts with the hi-hat, and there's figure that the guitars are playing. So those tunes are cool because I can sort of just like dial in with the click for the first couple bars, and then before I drop in, click it off.
It's just pressure's off, it's just going to be.
Yeah, and then I know it's pretty close,
Right, that's good.
But some of these tunes they're interesting. They're like they all have their little quirks in the groove. Like a tune like Josie, it's easy to play it slower, and then you listen back and you notice like it's actually pretty fast. Or Peg is sort of like it feels slow when you start playing it, and you say, "Is this too slow?" And then you listen and it's like, no, it's actually a little slow, but the groove is on top of the beat, so it still feels peppy. Little things like that.
So we had mentioned earlier that you're using in-ear monitors on this gig. Are the rest of the band using in-ears?
No, just me and Will, the keyboard player.
Gotcha. So then does Will also have click, or is it just you?
He has a very little amount of it. I think he does have a little bit though, but not very much.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Cool. Now we covered pretty much all the standard gear and stuff. Do you have any kind of like secret gear that you have on the gig that you must have? Like there's particular cymbal felt or particular hi-hat clutch. Is there anything that you're just adamant about? Man, I gotta have it.
Tape.
All right, man.
Good gaff tape.
Yeah. It will pay for itself.
Man, I have to go with that one too.
Yeah, no, there's nothing much. I mean, I do like to although on this gig, the drums sound, the Aquarian heads are nice. I don't even have any tape, and all the drums have the little mutes inside, which I like.
Yeah.
But I always play with on my snare. I always have a ring on the snare.
Gotcha.
Man, it's so weird. Like it's hard for me to play without a ring on the snare.
Full ring.
Yeah, full ring.
Just the sound you hear.
It just sounds so much better always. And
it is a great equalizer as far as
I'm telling you,
room
it
to
always
room and
makes
all
the
that.
snare sound better and fatter and so that is one thing that I always have is a mute ring. I just cut out an old head. Yeah.
Yeah, awesome.
That's good.
So Lee, we're starting to kind of power down. We got through most of the stuff that we wanted to get through. You're going to finish up here in the U.S., and then you're going to head over to Japan.
Yeah.
And then that's going to officially end the tour over in Japan.
Yeah.
What are your plans after that?
Recording Donald's new record.
Yeah.
Dude, don't you listen? Come on, man.
Man,
we got to put it out there.
Who did all the prep work on this thing, man?
Out in the universe, because then it'll happen. He will say it.
Well,
no, don't say it.
No. Well, for one, I'm having them leave me in Japan for an extra week, which will be cool.
Nice,
nice, man.
Yeah, so I love to travel, and so I'm going to hang in Japan. And
First time
in Japan.
Yeah. Very cool.
Which would be cool. And after that, there's some recording projects on the horizon, and a few records that people want to make with us. So hopefully we'll do those in the fall, and just continuing to play and practice and try to keep getting better.
Awesome, man.
Yeah.
Lee, tell everybody, give them your website.
Oh yeah, I have it's sort of half-built website I made. It's leefalco.com.
Aptly named.
What? That's so creative.
I think
what about this?
Now I'm going, wait, is it Lee Falco Music? I don't even remember what it is. I think it's leefalco.com.
Tell you what, if it doesn't go to,
they're going to figure it out.
If you don't get it with leefalco.com, go to leefalcomusic.com.
Something like that.
What about the studio? You guys have a website for that too?
Yeah, that's linked right there too. That's building-records.com.
Gotcha.
Yeah. No, building-records, not a dash. You can't put a dash in a building-records.
You know what we're going to do, Lee? When we get done, I will make sure to put all this stuff in the show notes. You know what I mean? That shows up when you download the podcast. So that way people will have it for sure.
Yeah, there's not much on my website, but, hey, maybe there will be in the future. I got the domain name.
I was going to say, your website's better than ours. We don't have ours built yet. So,
you have one.
Yeah, I do, but it's not the show, though. But Lee, you've been fantastic, man.
Oh, thanks for having me.
We're not done yet, though.
All right. I'm having fun.
We always finish off our interviews with what we like to call the Drummers Weekly Groovecast Rorschach Test. This we give you these short questions which you provide short answers. We send them off to our think tank at the Drummers Weekly Groovecast studios. And then we analyze them, and it spits out your personality.
Okay.
Right, John?
Well, whatever you say, man.
John likes to start the clock on this.
Yeah. All right. I'm just gonna let. No, there's no. This is not. You're
gonna go easy on me,
man.
All right.
I'm not gonna rush this kid at all, man. This is gonna be organic.
Yeah. Don't worry, I'll take care of the rushing.
Vintage drums.
Here's the interesting.
Turn a click. This kid. I mean, I'm like.
The interesting part of these questions, Lee, is that when I made these questions, I pretty much knew what I thought the answers were going to be, and some of them are going to end up kind of rehashing some things, but we'll go through with it. Okay.
Do you have a buzzer when I get them wrong?
No, it's a shock mechanism on your chair.
Yeah,
man.
okay.
Yeah, it's right there. So, okay.
I was wondering what these wires were.
So don't think about these answers too much. There's going to be a couple in there that might make you a little uncomfortable. Just jump right in. Okay.
All right.
All right. So here we go. Question number 1: drumsticks, wood tip or nylon tip?
Wood tip.
PCs or Macs?
Macs.
In-ear monitors or wedges?
Well, right now I'm liking the in-ears.
We'll go with that.
I'll go with that.
Text messages or phone calls?
Phone calls.
Ooh, throwback, man.
Dude, duh.
I'm telling you. You should learn from him.
I've been paying attention, dude. I know what he's old school.
We already know the answer to this next one, but let's go with it anyway. Vintage or new drums?
Vintage.
Snare drum, wood or metal?
Wood.
What is your favorite recording studio microphone?
Flea 47.
Up all night or up at the crack of dawn?
Up all night.
Elvin or Tony?
Elvin.
Drum heads, thick or thin?
Thick.
Coffee or tea?
Coffee.
Sports, love them or hate them?
Love them.
Part 2 of the question. Rangers or Islanders?
Rangers.
Name an underrated drummer.
Tony Mason.
Ooh. What's your favorite TV show?
I don't know. Got me. John Oliver.
Okay. Brushes. Wire or plastic?
Wire.
Knew that one. Barbecue. Pork, beef, or chicken?
Chicken.
What are you better at? Singing or drumming?
Drumming.
Favorite hobby to do outside of music?
Travel.
Last and $1 million question. Nightfly, Commissariat, Morph the Cat, or Sunken Condos?
Nightfly.
You passed, sir. That's Lee Falco, everybody.
Yeah, that is Lee Falco.
Thanks for having me.
Oh,
I'm going to adopt him.
Dude,
I've just decided.
He's older than you. He's an old soul. Can't you
I'm
tell?
still going to adopt him. Only because I think he's going to make a lot of money in a retirement plan. I mean, I like him too, but...
Well, adoptions aren't cheap.
I think he just...
Well played, sir.
He's going to send me an invoice. Let me mull it over, right?
Well played, sir. Lee, it's been an absolute pleasure, man.
Oh, likewise.
Thank you for taking your day off,
man,
to traipse all over Atlanta and come over here and talk to us for an hour and a half,
me,
man.
yeah.
We really do appreciate it.
Nice
man.
to see some new faces.
Oh, absolutely,
Yeah.
man. It won't be the last you've seen of us.
Yeah.
We're around. And for everybody who's out there, make sure you go out and see these guys play, man. Donald Fagen and the Night Flyers, they're playing in a lot of interesting towns. They're not just hitting the big towns.
Yeah.
Just before they got here, they were in Montgomery. They're going to end up being in Wilmington, North Carolina. They're going to Chattanooga. And, of course, they're hitting the big cities, too. Like they're in Atlanta tonight, and you guys are doing you're doing L.A. and all the other stuff.
We're not doing L.A. We're doing
LA?
San Fran and San Jose.
Yeah.
We're doing Salina, Kansas, for all your listeners out there.
Wow.
In Salina.
I'm sure we got a few out there.
Yeah.
Yeah. We got a ton
Check
in
it
San
out.
Francisco, man.
We're in San Francisco at the Masonic.
Oh, that's a great venue, man.
Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome, man. All right. Well, Lee, say goodbye to the good folks of Groovecastistan.
All right. Adios.
You're silly.
All right, guys. You
Thanks,
heard
man.
it. All right,
Thanks.
Lee. Take care, buddy. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Once again, a big thanks to Lee Falco for letting us take up his entire off day while he was here in Atlanta. What a good sport. We dragged him around all over the city. So we wore him out more than he would on a normal day when he was working. But if you get a chance, please go see these guys. Go see Donald Fagen and the Night Flyers. All the reviews are off the chart positive. You see these reviews saying Donald Fagen is re-energized with these young guys that are playing with him. Never been more true. No fake news there, folks. So go out and see Donald Fagen and the Night Flyers. They're coming to a city near you, and that even could be these small cities, these underserved cities that we like to say. So please check the Donald Fagen tour dates. And also, folks in Japan, keep an eye out. We have listeners over there. Donald Fagen and the Night Flyers are going to be visiting you as well. So please check your local calendars and go out and support these guys. Also, speaking of support, don't forget to go by leefalco.com. There's just more information about Lee, and it also has a nice link to his recording studio, Building Records. And on there, you can see some of the different recordings that Lee's played on and some of the other different records that were recorded there. So please go by there and say hi to Lee. He is a very, very friendly, affable guy. And if you have to say so, if you want to say something to him, he'll get right back to you. He's a great guy. All right. Listeners, thank you so much. We appreciate your patronage. We appreciate your listenership. As always, reach out to us. Tell us what you like about the show. Tell us what you don't like about the show. Do you have something new you want us to cover? Is there a specific interview you want to hear? Reach out to us. You can email us at our email address, which is drummersweeklygroovecast@gmail.com. You can also interact with us on social media. We are at facebook.com/Drummers Weekly Groovecast. And if you want to tweet to us, you can tweet to us. We are at DW Groovecast or twitter.com/ DW Groovecast. Also, we don't ask this very often, but something that we would like to encourage is for you folks that are active on social media, please share our posts, share the show, share the different episodes that you really like, share the different tweets. We really do appreciate it. It's one of the things that help us grow organically. And with that in mind, for you folks who access our show through iTunes, or if you just have an iTunes account and you pull the show down from your favorite podcast app, we would really appreciate it if you would swing by the Drummers Weekly Groovecast homepage inside of iTunes and leave us a short written review. We really do appreciate it. And just as a side note, it actually gets you registered as well for our next contest that we're going to have. We like to do these drawings from time to time, and we normally make registration through iTunes. So it helps us in a lot of different ways, and will help you as well from the standpoint of being registered for our shows. All right, that's it for this week. So on behalf of John and Lee Falco, Phil here, and we'll see you next week. Bye-bye.
Change my mind. You're just pathetic, baby. Oh, you're bitching and you're crying. And not my problem, you're delusional, living in a fantasy. I said, hang up the phone, leave me alone. There ain't